Joining us today to delve into the world of software and modern full stack development and AI engineering is our guest and long term industry vet, Adam Aslan. You are now tuned in to Coder Conversations. Be sure to connect with us at coderconvos.com. I'm your host, Kevin.
And I'm Brian.
And joining us today is Adam Aslan. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Adam, thanks a lot for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see you guys have been doing do you know what number episode this is you guys got here?
Like 380 something.
Something's up there. Because Kev's been doing this. Kev's been doing this for 3 years. I joined him about a year and a half ago, but even over that year and a half, like we've just been churning them out 2 a week, 3 a week sometimes.
Wow.
But it's been a very enjoyable process.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have had a ton of interesting conversations along the way, so that's a cool thing.
Yeah, have you? It looks like you might be into podcasting yourself. I see you got the road right there.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot with audio stuff. I'm very, in that audiophile world. So, whenever I'm on something, legit like this, try to get the, get a nice little mic going.
Absolutely, man. It seems like you're a man of many talents. You're really into technology. So what have you been doing with AI lately?
Yeah, so I've been way back when I was an economics major. So I've been kind of doing stock market related stuff. So I've been basically figuring out ways to understand the stock market better through AI. So a lot of the stuff you kind of figure out through understanding, kind of economics in the stock market, but then there's so many different indicators, technical analysis, all this stuff. So then you get AI to kind of summarize some of that. So kind of finding, my favorite little indicators and then getting AI to kind of help analyze with them. So that's kind of one thing I've been doing.
Yeah. Now, are algorithms involved at all or not really?
Kinda. I mean, it's basically, there's a quantitative analysis part that is really triggered through algorithms themselves. And then once those algorithms have been computed, then those results are analyzed by I'm using the Gemini API from Google. So have Gemini kind of look over them and then kind of create a strength ranking of these signals that the algorithms are coming up with, and kind of having Gemini be all right, so this is the strongest, and this is kind of what you should be really focused on.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think my background is actually in accounting. I wanted to run a mutual fund at one point in time, so I'm pretty familiar with that world. But it seems like it's really different now with AI. Before you had to go through the financial statements by hand, but AI can summarize or go through all of pretty much in the blink of an eye. So
exactly.
Using
AI, No, and even you can get it's called OCR. So it's images basically that you have AI can scan old tax documents and stuff like that, and it's getting very just elevated in terms of being able to understand these images of old documents, things like that, and then give really sort of up to date analysis of them.
So do you still feel like an investing strategy like value investing is still reasonable in a time like this where you have AI that can scan all of the financial documents instantly? Is it still able to find bargains?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always just so what's popular, what has momentum, and what doesn't, and then sort of the reasoning behind it isn't, it's it's based off kind of human psychology and stuff like that. So and obviously there's market fundamentals and this and that, but it's you got all these different companies that have different sort of earnings and like what they're like trading at relative to their earnings and stuff like that. And, so many different ways to, categorize these things. So it's like, how much cash on hand does one company have? Like, is one other company have like a dividend that's really strong? You know what I mean? So it's like, you always have like a variety of factors to consider. So it's like AI can help you analyze all these different factors like just a lot faster.
Right. Now, what about, say, options?
Yeah. I mean, options is an even better one, I think, in the sense that like, it's harder to get clear recommendations for options like these days in general. So it's kind of, I think AI kind of fills a gap that kind of exists out in the mainstream media for like options trading.
Okay.
So it's like, for example, yeah, like I'm like building something where it could be like, okay, this is a good strategy, like a put credit spread, expiring on this date, for this stock, 5 wide, spread, go for it, and it's like, all right, well, are you going to listen to AI? Maybe not. But if you're like kind of thinking that already, and then it's giving you some like technical indicators that, like RSI or, just kind of spot some things like divergences or something that you might not have spotted already. So things like that.
Or there's that thing called is the VWAP or VWAP?
There you go. Yeah. The VWAP. Yeah.
VWAP. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know, there's so many different, sort of ways to analyze all that stuff. So it's like, maybe you're not a huge VWAP guy, so it's like you got like the stocks could be, like you get a AI, sort of helping you in terms of some of these things, like, and just to like analyze it. And yeah, I mean, especially like the more you can, like nowadays there's stuff like skills from like Claude, it's like the newest thing that came out, and
Right.
you kind of train it on like VWAP, give it like all these different things, and then you kind of give it like a bunch of data, and then like have it kind of really analyze it like the way you want.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I know like AI it's an incredibly powerful analytical tool, but I think it can also be really dangerous in the world of finance, especially if somebody's not analyzing themselves. They just kind of relying on the AI because, there's hallucinations and things of that nature. It could just give you false information. So I'm assuming if you chain together, these AI agents and just give them a lot of autonomy, you can have a pretty devastating chain effect that,
Yeah. I mean, I think we're not like there yet in terms of like really just letting like AI do what it wants, like, I don't know, I read like something in an article today that like Amazon's mad at Perplexity for like having it buy stuff on Amazon and things like that. So I think it goes the same way with like the stock market. It's like you don't really necessarily want AI like trading for you at this exact moment. So, and I mean, I would think of it more as like kind of like things that it thinks are important rather than like recommendations anyways, so
yeah, because
like
I guess because the stock market is largely, it's reflecting human ideas and thoughts and movements, and it's taking in all this human data. So how do an AI bot, what does it really do with that data? That data that we just pick up as, like say you just go to a mall and you notice, oh, a lot of kids have these certain shirts on, or you go into the computer store and they're really selling like a lot of NVIDIA cards. How is the AI going to pick up on that stuff? That'd probably be a little more difficult for it to do.
No, I mean, I think like talking about like trends or talking about like all these other things, I feel like it gets pretty tricky. So the more you can kind of lock it into like a sort of more statistical sort of like parameters, I think, like in the stock market that's like possible, but in terms of like buying things, it's like, how do you necessarily really know what like a child wants for a gift or something like that? You have to
like
really
what do
know the
they
kid.
need? What does the kid need?
Right. But I don't know, if you got a decent profile of like the kid and stuff like that, I don't know, it could work. It's just like, how much do you trust AI? So it's like, but you have like all these kids like running around with like, iPhones and stuff. So it's kind of like, well, it's more and more just like about like kind of trusting like technology as it like, matures. And, right now AI is like, as we say, it's like still in early innings. So, just kind of got to like make more intelligent decisions in the short run.
Right. And they talk about AGI, or they talk about artificial, like the race towards artificial super intelligence. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think like AGI, it's like thinking about it just kind of like as this, it's like a regular person that can do like a bunch of different things. And, I feel like in a lot of ways, like AI can do that, but there's definitely just like these like sort of gaps where it does like falter. And like doing like full stack development type stuff, and I don't necessarily trust it for like initially just to like make everything the way it's supposed to. There's always just like a bunch of sort of gaps in there. So it's like, yeah, you have to go through like a bunch of iterations, and the more you really know what you're looking for ahead of time, like the better off you are. So like people that just, they're like vibe coding, like it's like not necessarily going to be that, great of a thing for them if like you really don't know what to expect from it. And, especially like nowadays, like security concerns and stuff like that. So it's like, from the coding world, even where it's like, AI is like definitely making coding like easier. It's still like there's still a lot of sort of like gaps in it, and it is kind of what you were saying earlier in terms of like it's based off of like human data, right? So it's like as much data as we have on specific things is like as far as it can go. So it's like there's a lot of stuff humans don't know, and like AGI can only do so much in those sort of situations. So it's like not really going to have too much knowledge of these subjects. So it's, and everything being like so subjective and a lot of decision making, how do you really get to that level where it's, you really need like a critical decision, and there's just not a lot of information.
Do you think things like, diseases, different types of cancer, HIV, do you think that artificial general intelligence would be able to kind of crack some of these diseases, or not so much?
I mean, it's a good question. I think it's really just about like the process for me, so it's like the more and more, we develop AI, like the better it's going to get at helping with these things. So, techniques are changing, and in certain fields like of science, it's just like it's accelerating, but in other ones it's maybe not as much. So and I feel like there's even like in like the scientific world, I think there's like some hesitation to use AI all the time. So it's like more trust, more adoption. And when you get to like an AGI level intelligence with like disease and stuff like that, I think, it's definitely going to make huge impacts, so, we'll see what happens then.
That's pretty significant, I would say.
As far as I've seen with AI, it's pretty much like a advanced scaffolding tool. Like you can get it maybe 70% of the way, and then you have to have the competence yourself to look over the code, make sure it's secure, tweak it to whatever you want to do. So
right,
I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of like kind of looking at it. It's like getting you to that like 70% point, and then
which is awesome though.
Right.
Even the fact that it can do that 70%, that's pretty wild compared to like say 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it from like sort of like the engineering world where it's like, all right, well, how long would this sort of project take to complete, and it's like, well, if 70% of the work is being done by AI, then you'd think it would take like maybe twice as like less time or whatever, half the time you could like complete some of these projects. So I think that stuff like that's significant, and it just kind of allows people to, the way I look at it, it's like I think it can right now, especially like it's really just like enhancing people's abilities to like work, I think, rather than like taking away people's jobs. But I don't know.
I
feel like
feel like they're
hesitance.
using AI kind of as a scapegoat. You know, these companies like what Amazon just let go of I think it was 12,000 people.
Yeah, a
You know,
bunch of people,
so
something. Yeah.
yeah, so you hear about, oh, it's because of AI, it's because of AI, but you know, really it may just be because the company realizes, okay, we don't need this many workers. Like we don't need all this middle management. There's certain things that AI can do that a lot of these people are already doing. So we just go ahead and throw that in the mix and it'll be all good. I don't know. So it's kind of a toss up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's one of these things where like you can't always know what an employee is going to bring, and then I feel like so like these companies, you hear more about like not like hiring more people, and I don't know, it's an interesting thing in the sense that it's like, well, if you're not hiring more people, is that really like when you can be, are you actually doing like that great of a service to your company? Like
Right.
isn't there a way like with AI to like onboard more people to do more things, to accomplish things faster? So I feel like that will like kind of come to fruition at some point too. So it's like there's kind of a hesitancy, and I feel like we're still kind of, you know, the
A
economy is like
trust.
separate too, you know what I
We
mean?
don't
So
trust it. I think
yeah.
that's a big, or at least a lot of the citizens, a lot of the population doesn't really trust, you know, because we've seen the movies, we've seen Terminator, iRobot. You know, some people think this stuff is plausible and could happen. I don't. What do you think about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's some interesting things um like a lot of AI is very like goal driven. So like even if I don't know, I've heard like various things like like if you kind of like give it like a goal and then be like, you can't do this though, this is cheating. Like, but the goal like clearly involves like the fastest way to accomplish its goal is through cheating, like it will cheat.
Yeah,
Like even if you tell it not to, like so it's like stuff like that where you're like, all right, well, it seems like it's not that easy to control um all the time. So it's like, and just like these biases, like, and just kind of like how AI will kind of try to like agree with you all the time, things like this. Like
yeah, yeah.
you see these biases, and it's trying to like correct for all that. It's like not that easy, but it's also like kind of the human condition too. It's like we do love a yes man, so it's like we're like
Yeah.
they're not really that upset about it, I feel like.
Like in terms of your everyday workflow, in what areas is AI actually bringing a benefit? Is it like writing unit tests, doing code reviews? Like, how are you actually getting productivity in a real way with AI versus the hype?
I mean, I think for me, there's a lot of like pre-planning going on, that like is like fleshing out ideas better, and um, then like getting AI to sort of then execute on these ideas that have been like fleshed out better, and then documenting the code. I would say like are the biggest sort of things that it's helping for me. So it's like it's definitely like creating a lot of the code that's there, and then I'm like kind of like overseeing a lot of it, like making changes, sort of like seeing where errors are, guiding it through like certain errors, but kind of like still kind of using it to like do the writing of the code a lot of the time, and like maybe just me like kind of changing a couple things where it's like smaller amounts, but the like typing out of all this code, it's like it's mostly doing that.
So it's more similar to, say, a tech lead, someone that's more senior. They're going to go in and analyze, okay, you know, Claude has written 70% or whatever, AI bot people are using nowadays, it's done 70-80%. Okay, now I just need to do this X, Y, and Z, do some unit tests, and then we're all good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and like, now I have like AI too. Like when I do like, they call like a pull request, you can have like Gemini like reviewing the code, and like kind of highlighting some of the areas where you could improve it and stuff like that. So then like bring that, wow, like so I'm like using Claude for this, Gemini for that, like ChatGPT for like some of the planning ideas. I'm using like Mistral for like a variety of like kind of pre-planning concepts too, just kind of like we're like brainstorming, stuff like that. And yeah, so it's like a whole workflow using all these different toolings. And then like kind of like Cursor is like another one where it's like you're in the actual IDE and like sort of changing things like in the file or having it like kind of in a second window, like analyzing, the files.
So I know like AI can pretty much do the job that a lot of juniors were doing before. So I'm me personally, I think that what a junior in the industry is going to be in the future is going to be different. So like if you were to give a junior advice on how to actually break into the industry now, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say like, in a lot of ways, like I feel like things haven't changed a ton. Like we're talking about algorithms, like you still need to like understand that stuff. I think like the specifics of like, like kind of seeing like how much, like understanding like structure. I think, like if like a language, like how like a language works, like there's kind of like a philosophy behind Python or JavaScript, like understanding like that kind of philosophy. And then being able to kind of implement code like from that perspective, and then kind of understanding like sort of like ecosystems in which like an app, like if it's like a more back end app, like understanding each of the sort of services, products you might need, APIs you need to call. So it's like kind of getting an understanding of these like these things, and like just kind of and it's like you see like a job application or whatever, like looking at like the the nice to have stuff. It's like you got to know at least like a little bit about all those things. So it's like the more and more that you can kind of just be like building that stuff yourself and like understanding it, like the better. So, I feel like that's the main takeaway, I would say, is just like get in there and start working the stuff and like actually have like a, like philosophical understanding of like the languages you're using.
So you got a question from the audience there.
Go ahead.
How well does AI perform with regards to code reviews compared to a human?
I mean, I think it's kind of subjective, you might say, but it's, I mean, I think there's like good aspects to it, because it's like what I like about code review from like Gemini, for example, is like a lot of times it's giving suggestions that like you might not have caught, because it's just constantly giving you like, it has like the like sort of like critical, then like the medium, and then like the like low ranking like suggestions. So it's like you just kind of see that stuff and you're like, all right, well, one way or another, this stuff is gonna like, potentially, impact the coding base. But a lot of it isn't actually gonna trigger some sort of error in the building process. So it's pretty helpful a lot of the times, where it's like you might I'd say like use it, and then
so it's pretty clean, it sounds like.
I mean, yeah, it's like a no, it doesn't hurt to use it, I mean, maybe you might in some ways when you have like all this code review and it's like, if it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it sort of concept, it's like, well,
sure.
A lot of times you'll have the code review and it'll suggest things like maybe like best practices and things like that. And like that is important, but it's like, well, in a lot of companies, you're just like trying to like push out the code and things like that. So it can kind of like slow down the process, and but it's like, well, what is like code review for? So it's like to look at these like security sort of ideas and stuff like that. And these days there's just a ton of different security concerns. So if AI can help with that in any way, I feel like I'd go for it, right?
So yeah, I guess as you're talking about now, when AI meets the world of cybersecurity, what does that look like now, and what does that look like once it gets to a super intelligence level?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's different concerns when you're talking about like security and the like now versus the future, for sure. Like there's sort of like the ability to sort of like look and find weaknesses in a code base. So it's like you can kind of have like AI potentially like scanning, just like tons and tons of different like repos on GitHub and things like that, and just like trying to like find vulnerabilities. So there's like AI kind of with that capacity to really like find weakness in code bases like faster than like people might be able to do in the past. And then and then there's just like in the future, it's hard to say like kind of what might be created that like can kind of like hiding an IP address, so then you can kind of like attempt like logins or something like
right
easier and stuff like that, just like creating like just sort of like expanding the capacities of like a VPN or something like that. So and to talk about like kind of like what like quantum computing might do in terms of like just like like accessing passwords and things like that. Like it's just like it can like try more passwords faster and stuff like that. So I mean, so there's definitely some concerns in terms of like in the future, like vulnerabilities that might be created through like AI or quantum computing, things like that.
So it sounds like it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you never know what the future is going to hold exactly in terms of these things. So it's like kind of, finding these like weaknesses in code. It's just like there seems to be a lot that's like happening. So it's kind of what for me, I've been like looking at like sort of like, a lot of stuff is like through the front end or through like the back end. And like, so it's like there's been like a big movement for like sort of like server side code, because it's like if it's like kind of in this server, then it's like the code is kind of in a more like sort of like ready-made state on the server. So then when it's like coming onto the browser, there's like sort of like less that can be manipulated because there's like more built on the server. So things like that is kind of what's happening like these days to like sort of mitigate these problems. And like, but it's a lot of different things, but there's I feel like security is a huge aspect of things, and people are through like monitoring logs, like there's just like ways to like throttling requests, a lot of stuff out there.
I know a lot of companies might be hesitant to expose their code to AI because once it's exposed, the AI has it and it can eventually spit that information right back out, especially like if it's consuming passwords or confidential information. So like, how do you think a company should balance like the power of AI with also the need to preserve like confidential information?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously like a lot of companies are like getting into agreements with AI companies to make the data like confidential or just to not use the data at all, to like kind of customize the data flow for these sort of if there is like any sort of advancement in like the models or something like that. So there's like a lot of different things you can make. So yeah, I mean, there's you see like more and more there are movements towards like privacy and things like that. So, like you see like a lot of different companies sort of like coming out with like more private AI driven LLMs.
Do you feel like, okay, companies that have, like, I guess the best model, the most powerful model, they're going to have a massive advantage over other companies? So can you see like a huge AI race war, like to, kind of gain exclusivity over the best version of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think like right now, you see like the strongest models, like, Claude, it's like 4.5 something coming out, and it's like, yeah, like companies that don't have access to these models, like, you're just like kind of like losing your ability to efficiently move forward with things. But, in the same sense, like you do have like OpenAI that's coming out with their latest stuff and like kind of like the functionality that it has. So it's not like, you know, like either one's like decent, and then like Google, Gemini is like 2.5 Pro is like a strong model. It's just like kind of seeing like what the use cases are. It's like if your company's like super Google dependent, like, yeah, then maybe Gemini like 2.5 Pro is going to be like very helpful and sort of have like more integrations, especially in the future. Like they can really just speed up that workflow.
Right.
So it's kind of like, yeah, like if you're really behind in the process, like a lot of time is wasted with these like inferior models, just like having like hallucinations, just not like really knowing how to deal with things. But, it's like, I don't know. A lot of times we're still like, especially when it comes to like various like tasks, like, I don't know, like writing an email or something like that. Like a lot of it's like feel, and it's kind of hard to get that perfect now anyway. So it's like, it's really, still the race hasn't been won. So hard to see if like anyone will actually win it, so to speak,
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's still in its infancy. It's still trying to get its bearings right, or aligned, or however you want to look at that. Um, what do you think is the most important thing for, say, someone that's new, entry level talent coming in with AI? Would you say, okay, get caught up on Chat GPT, Claude? Like, what specifically would you tell the junior? Okay, you need to have X, Y, and Z skills to break into this market.
Mm. Well, I guess like one thing I would say is that it's really, there's a lot of products out there. So it kind of depends on like the company itself. Like, like I personally like Claude for like coding tasks, but like maybe the company's just like got a contract with OpenAI and like you really can't use Claude, So it's like, well, then you have to know like how you can really sort of, maximize the gains from OpenAI. So it's like kind of like keeping it, an eye out for all these like different things, like, I don't know, like the agent builder in OpenAI like came out a couple weeks ago or something like that, and like, yeah, like Claude just had like the new skills that like kind of got created, and like all the leading companies now have like kind of like this like memory functionality for like context engineering. So, just kind of like seeing these developments like across the board, and just like kind of understanding also like kind of under the hood a bit, like understanding transformers, understanding like sort of the various like ways like reinforcement learning. There's like diffusion models. There's like a kind of newer thing that's like getting some traction. So kind of just like seeing the whole landscape is kind of like what I was saying about like understanding the philosophy behind like Python or JavaScript or something like that. It's kind of like,
Right.
Yeah, I think it's important to really understand the fundamentals of programming. That doesn't go away. Like you can't just toss that in the trash because somebody has to still understand the output of the AI, but you would have to use the AI as a productivity enhancer. Like, hey, look, I can get so much more done with this than if I was trying to code it from scratch. But I also understand what it's outputting. I think the junior has to kind of combine both of those now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, and just kind of understanding that there's like a ton, you know, of just like, yeah, like sort of tools out there. So just kind of understanding that there is like this huge ecosystem to work within, and there's a lot of like strategy involved in terms of like getting everything correctly working. And these days, like linking all these services and tools and everything together is like a lot. So still like the full stack developer is just like the stack just got like bigger, but you're still like like developing. You just have to do more and understand how to sort of implement these things.
So yeah, Miles just mentioned that we're going to lose our ability to think sooner or later. So like, how do you personally see that we mitigate the risk of not being overly reliant on AI to the point where it's doing something for us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I saw this meme where it's like everyone you're like trying to like buy like I don't know something from like the deli or something, and you're like, "Hello, sir," and then like they're like responding back and forth, and they like run out of limits, like they hit their limit, and then they just like freeze as a person, and it's like, all right, well, it is kind of like that with some of this stuff. So it's I don't know. I feel like you know, um, I think like a lot of times it's just like trusting on like human conversation, what we're doing here, it's just like having a conversation with a person and like wanting to learn. And, I think there's a lot that can be just done just through talking with people and listening and reading, things like this.
And you think about, say, a grocery store with the auto, the self checkout lines. I've been seeing that grow, like at Stop and Shop, which is local here in New York. I've been seeing that grow, get bigger and bigger, where there's not an actual human checking you out. It's, one of these 15 or 20 different self checkout slots. Do you think that's going to eventually push out all the humans? Or what do you think that might look like from your experience?
Well, it just kind of reminds me of like, I don't know, Amazon was doing something like that. And then it was like, it ended up being like people in the background, like just like dealing with all the stuff. You know what I mean? It was like a Steinfeld episode. It's like, what do you want me to pay here or something? I don't know. So it's like, I mean, I do think like, we talk about like optical recognition, with like AI and all that stuff and getting better and better. And, like, yeah, like just like kind of like, big brother watching over you as you're in the supermarket. I don't know. Like, I mean, there's definitely some, privacy concerns that, integrating AI with like security and stores and everything like that. Like, where does it end? So, um, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely like a concern. It was like really thinking about people's privacy and all this stuff. So, will it come to this like in the future? Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, you're still gonna want at least to have like a handful of people like monitoring all this stuff.
Right.
So, robotics kind of goes hand in hand with AI. Are you excited about the future of robotics, and do you plan on buying one for your house anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm always the type of guy that's like I want to see like the thing work first, like have someone else buy it first, but
Yeah.
like we'll get it after. But yeah, I mean, I think like robotics is definitely like a field that is like really, sort of popping off, and I think it's going to continue to grow. And yeah, I feel like there will be more robotics in the future that like I feel like there will be more robots in houses, in like the next 5 years.
Like what kind of robot do you personally see yourself buying? Like, okay, something that does the house tasks, or more of a companion that talks to you, or like.
I mean, house tasks for sure. Like you get like a robot that can like do your laundry or something, you know, like hell yeah. But
Yeah, fold all the laundry too.
yeah. I mean, certain stuff like I don't know, just like yeah, or like you know, sort of food prep type stuff. Like yeah, I feel like just like the more mundane tasks, like the more you could get like a robot to do some of the stuff. It's like it just like reduces like human toil, you know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean the talking to like a robot thing, I feel like that like, you know, could happen. But I don't know if you necessarily like in for my use cases, you know, do I want like a robot sitting in the corner, you know, just chatting with it,
Just hanging out. Yeah.
you know, but you never know. Like it could be cool, like especially if it can do some stuff, you know. I don't know.
So yeah, in terms of you and software, what are like some of the trends, the more recent trends that you've been noticing in software? Like, what are the hot frameworks, or you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you know, there's yeah, like I was saying, there's like a just like a ton of like services out there that you know, doing one thing or another. Like a lot of people are using like Cursor these days. It's like, you know, having like AI in your, you know, sort of IDE, you know, that where you're coding, things like that. There's like Cloud Code that kind of like works in like things like in like terminal sort of based like sort of software, AI sort of help like seeing a lot with like APIs in general, just you know, like seeing like AI agent stuff like you know, so um obviously like the agent thing is like growing rapidly. So um you know, like I've been using it a little bit just to like for like calendar stuff, you know, like have it like make a calendar event for me, things like that. So um you know, seeing like yeah, just like a lot of like this AI agent stuff I think is like pretty strong on like that end of stuff. Yeah, and like I don't know, like software, you just see like, you know, certain like companies like doing stuff like Postman is, you know, like kind of like doing stuff with like MCP server, like, and things like that. So it's like they have like a MCP server registry, you know, so it's like seeing like sort of these like software companies like kind of building out their AI resources and like tooling and stuff like that.
So what I've been seeing, me personally, in terms of being a developer, is like there, just being a quote unquote like front end developer or back end developer, that's lessening, and you're more expected to be kind of a jack of all trades, a little bit of DevOps, a little bit of front end, a little bit of back end, but you have to
Right.
understand how the system comes together. And
Mm-hmm.
I think AI is now going to be a part of that system, understanding how it affects the system and how it can increase productivity.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, um, yeah, seeing that, seeing like, you're looking at stuff like in terms of like, so like has companies scale, you know, so it's like once you get past like 100 employees, you know, it's like you start like still, I think you have like this need to like really focus in on a lot of this stuff because, you know, you have these like, you know, it's like everything. I think with AI, you see like the ability to just enhance rather than like bring on this stuff. So I do think like yeah, like as like a normal full stack developer for like a company, I don't know, like under like with like a dev team that's like not super big, yeah, like you're just doing more stuff. But I think with like these bigger corporations and stuff like that, the idea is like just like speeding up the process and like diving deeper, you know, because it's like if you're like yeah, dealing with like these like enormous backends with just like all these like specific you know, like files and everything like that, you know, it's just you know, it's just more files that create more like routes, you know, more APIs to develop, things like that. So it's like,
Right.
you know, it doesn't like end, I think, you know, it's just like, yeah, like there is like more to be expected, but it's just like more in different ways, you know. So it's like the depth versus like the breadth, I think is like two different directions that I think companies could be going.
Yeah, I mean, all this AI stuff is really, it's interesting to think about and just ponder. Okay, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like what is it going to look like? What are the capabilities going to be? I think it's fun to just kind of sit there and analyze that with people. I mean, me and Kev do that sometimes on the show. We talk about AI every now and then. But I know before the show, you had mentioned you're also a musician. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah. I got this project called NYC Pony. I've been like playing music. I used to be in like bands and stuff. And now it's like more like solo, where I'll play with like one other person. But yeah, I'm like just trying to come up with like a 42 song album next year. So I like kind of recorded a ton of music during the pandemic and stuff like that, and just kind of been sitting on it. So I'm like, all right, try to record or just try to get like everything tightened up and just like release it all at once is like the idea.
I do video game music as well. I have a full length just kind of waiting to be mastered, but mastering is so expensive. If you're going in for one track, you might pay $100 just for that track. So for an 8 or 9 song LP, you might be looking at $8,000-$9,000 maybe for the mastering session. So I kind of got to start putting money aside for that, but I'd like to definitely put out more music soon.
Yeah, no, it's tricky one, the mastering, all of like, I mean, it gets nice, right? Like you put it through some like vintage, tape reel stuff like that to get like some like real nice sounds and everything. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like when it comes down to it, it's like, I don't know, it's all getting like digitized and this and that. So it's like, are you going to be able to listen to it and like it's, best possible format always, just get that music out there if it sounds like pretty decent, you know what I mean? Like you're getting the highs and the mids and the lows like kind of coming through, like keep it relatively simple when it comes to the mastering. Don't go too crazy,
I feel like you're good as long as you're doing the mastering through, say, an SSL board or a Neve board. Those are, pretty like top in the industry for mastering and audio recording, engineering, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds nice to me. I don't know. I'm like, yo, does it sound like as loud as it does when you play other music on like, Apple Music or Spotify? It's right. My level with it. But yeah, I mean, getting like some serious mastering is definitely a nice thing.
Yeah, I think it's always good to do blind tests too, because a lot of times we start tweaking stuff and we think it's making this massive effect, but then you listen to it versus the original without being biased. Like, I put all this money and effort into this. Like, do you necessarily get thousands of dollars worth of value out of that? I think that's.
Yeah, no, for sure. 100%. Yeah. I mean, right now I'm like mostly just like trying to do this like singer-songwriter stuff. So, Spanish guitar, vocals,
Nice.
And unless you're like, I don't know, if you're like vocals or like, recorded in a specific format or this or that, it's like, yeah, like maybe you want to put more money into all this stuff. But I don't know, I kind of like the like lo-fi aesthetic for like the singer-songwriter stuff. So I'm more just like concerned about like the noise floor and stuff like that, and like random, just like kind of having, it sound pretty, decent,
Especially like old school hip hop. Part of its vibe was the more vintage. When it gets too clean, it kind of loses that ruggedness. So
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, man, how long have you been doing music, and where can people actually check your music out at?
Yeah, I mean, so I got like NYC Pony. It's all like one word. I got like some music on Spotify. I got some music on Apple Music, got like an Instagram, that I have like some like little music videos. So if you like check any like the reels on more recent like reels on Instagram, those are like little music videos I've been making. So those are like the three main places I'd say. There's stuff like you can kind of like find if you look up Adam Aslan on like YouTube, you'll find like a bunch of random stuff, but you know.
What are you listed as for Instagram? How would they look you
it's just
up?
it's like NYC Pony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So something interesting I noticed is that a lot of technologists, they often happen to be musicians as well. Do you think there's like some correlation? Is there something about music that draws you to it as a technologist?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I feel like it's almost like the reverse, you know? It's like if you're into music, like you could be into technology because like, you know, you get all the gear, you get like all the like, you know, musical theory and all that stuff. And you're like, all right, well, it's kind of hard to make any money doing all this stuff. So like
that's the thing.
I got all this like technical musical knowledge, you know, like I'm understanding like triads and, you know, like
it's not paying your bills though. That's the bottom line.
And you know, is understanding fifths, you know, it's like if you can understand like some of this like more complex stuff, then it kind of lends itself to like similar skills of like coding and stuff like that. So I'd say that's part of it. But yeah, I think there's like it kind of could go both ways too. It's like understanding once you get like a knowledge of software and stuff like that, then you like kind of want to like use the fun software, you know?
Right.
So for you, technology pretty much enables you to feed your music passion.
Yeah, I mean, I think I also like, you know, like I could see a situation in which like I could train AI to like make songs for me, you know, and like I don't know, some people be like, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. Don't say that. They're gonna steal your music, they're gonna steal your voice, da da da. And I'm like, well, yeah, that might happen, but I don't know, like we'll see, you know. It's like, yeah, I think it's just like, you know, as a musician, it's like I do see like some sort of way in which like AI just like makes your job even less lucrative, which is like kind of scary, you know. It's like already like kind of rough, and then it's just like some, you know, just like way that's like even worse. But I don't know, it's kind of, I think that's more like a future that like, you know, like a cynical way of looking at it. Like I don't know, I feel like I can see it helpful as well, you know.
I know that Zuckerberg talks about, you know, UBI, universal basic income. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk in like sort of AI circles that like, yeah, like there'll be less need for certain jobs and this and that, and the need for like more, yeah, universal basic income. And I mean, I don't think like that's something that's like really like to be worried about in this like in the next like 3 years, you know, but who knows? Like, you know, like past that, like, you know, we have like robotics increasing, we have like AI increasing, like it's definitely plausible to like think that like a lot of people could be losing their jobs, you know, and industries could be like wiped out that like were there before, you know. And I mean, I don't know, it's like it's kind of saying about the music stuff, it's like it's something to think about, but it's like also maybe I think a cynical viewpoint. Like I feel like, you know, I really just like trust in human intelligence to like find new ways to, you know, sort of be productive. So I think there'll be more jobs that who knows what like those jobs might be, you know, but that those could be created and valuable jobs, you know. It's like kind of we're talking about, you know, like full stack versus like back end, front end. And then, you know, like I think the idea of like an AI department, you know, that's just focused on AI in every company, you know, you have like specific AI guys, you know, just doing their thing, you know, or, you know, people, girls, whoever, you know.
Yeah, it's you know, we're talking about the music stuff. It makes me think about, you know, back in the 80s when drum machines came out, all the drummers were worried, oh, it's going to take our job. It's going to take our job. But like what actually ended up happening, certain bands use, like Wham or like super poppy stuff, they're using it. But most people wanted a real drum set on their record, and especially for touring. I mean, even now, hip hop artists have live drums. Pop artists, Sabrina Carpenter, live drums. So it's interesting to see how this is all going to play out. But I think if you're doing music, I think you're safe for the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, I think so much of music is like sort of, personality, brand, driven and stuff like that. So it's like
subjective.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like there's definitely going to be that. And, and especially like, it's like there's just definitely different levels to music. And like, it's like not everyone is a Sabrina Carpenter, but like there's still like, like people appreciating your music and, a lot of people coming out to see you and stuff like that, and I feel like that's just going to continue. So, I'm not too worried about that.
Back to the UBI point, like what I don't understand about it is companies don't want to pay you for doing work. Why would, the government or companies pay you for doing nothing? Like where are they going to get this money from to pay everybody?
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's a tricky one. Like, I mean, yeah, I feel like that's like in a world in which like we got the robots cleaning the streets, taking out the trash, doing the laundry, and it's like, like human laziness gets to like a new level, where it's like make the robot do it, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, like what do you do in a world where you don't have any work? Like what would you be doing?
I mean, it's a good question. Probably like, just like maybe traveling a bit more, like doing more music stuff, just do more creative stuff, like trying to like I would still try to be like learning languages, trying to like move like human civilization forward, just like trying to, I don't know, like I feel like there's things to be done,
Yeah, I feel like with music, I do drums mainly. And, just every day I practice at least for half an hour. And it's really just to, push the art form forward, keep it moving, keep taking in like new styles, mixing them up. For all my students, I always say, okay, I'm going to show you a beat, but next week when I see you, I want to see your stamp. I want to see you do something with that beat that's different, that's identify to you, it's specific. And I think that's a really important part of teaching, is letting students take something and then just go off the rails with it, just try all different things.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Just like learning and moving forward, and like just building out that like capacity in your brain for like whether it's like drumming or other types of music, or just like reducing stress, becoming more healthy, things like that. I mean, I feel like right now we're in like a spot where it's like I think a lot of people are like suffering in ways that like they don't have to, and maybe with like UBI might be able to have like sort of increase people's capacities, and then who knows, like I think it's like one of these things where I feel like there could just be jobs that are like way like nicer, because like that, like, and people talk about this in like the tech world too. It's like people getting hired because like more about their like personalities, so it's like people start like kind of working like on their personalities and things like that to like just like be a better person, and and like getting hired because of that,
Yeah, I mean that would be a good future.
But yeah, man, that was a pleasure having you on the show. We're getting to the top of the hour. Before we get out of here, where can our audience find you? And did you want to leave them with any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I got adamaslan.com, got like my GitHub facebook.com/Adam Aslan, NYC Pony on Instagram, Apple Music, Spotify, stuff like that. LinkedIn, I'm on as Adam Aslan as well. So ADAMASLAN, yeah. And just, it's been good chatting with you guys. So
most definitely.
Keep it up.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's been great. So, yeah, keep up the curiosity and, keep going for it.
Will do.
And we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all